Tottenham are still confident that they can reach an, quote, important solution to find their next manager soon, as after another setback, the club continue their hunt for a new manager. That news today is coming from the one and only Fabrizio Romano, as he talks more about Antonio Conte's future, the feeling at Spurs after the deal fell through, and we're going to look at plenty of reports around England and Europe as we try and figure out who the next Spurs manager is going to be. We've got updates on Conte, Ten Hag, Pochettino, and everything. And look, the majority of it is bad news. I'm going to put that out there right now. The good news is we are expecting an imminent announcement on the appointment of Fabio Paratici as the sporting director of the football club. But it's typical Spurs that we would get a sporting director or director of football, whatever you want to call it, when we don't have a manager. So we're going to take a look into that. We're also going to talk again about Jurgen Klinsmann's comments last night. Bring you up to date on everything with Tottenham's pursuit of a manager. We've got Carl, Shamu, Mark McKevitt, channel member Mark Woodland in here as well. Killian Kenny, good to see you. Random account Martin King, Jack Kanicki says no better Spurs face to see in the morning. Jack, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. And RN here as well, saying the fact that Hitchen has odds of becoming the next manager tells you everything about the shambles the club is in right now. And Steve Hitchen is currently with Sky Bet 66-1 to be the next Spurs manager. You can see the updated odds on every manager right there beside me, including Graham Potter, who I've had to include in this slideshow for the very first time because I really just do not know where this is going. Jenk says, do you think we're waiting for Paratici to join? I think, despite the fact we haven't got an announcement already, I do think Paratici is already fully into his job at the club. I know his contract with Juventus expired. It was either at the end of May or it's expiring imminently, but he's not doing any work with them, of course, because they'll be getting someone else in for the new season. But I think he's already had his work done, and I would have been hoping, and I think a lot of people were expecting to get the manager's announcement before the director of football announcement, but it's Spurs, it's Daniel Levy. It doesn't look like it's going to work out that way. But look, before we do get into all of those reports and Romano's update on Antonio Conte, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below to keep right up to date with all of Tottenham's hunt for a manager and the Transfer Talk series coming back this summer. And hit that notification bell as well, so you get notified whenever I upload or go live. And please do make sure to hit a like on the video while you were here, because it really helps me out, and it shows this video to many more people, and we get more people in this community and help us on our hunt for 10k before the season starts. But look, the first update we got from Fabrizio Romano today, we'll get on to the one at the bottom of the screen now in a second, but the first update we did get is with regards to the future of Antonio Conte, and there have been reports in the last 24 or so hours, especially from Corriere dello Sport in Italy, that Antonio Conte is still contemplating Tottenham's offer and has not yet completely ruled himself out of the running. And as Banter Soares there says, I don't think Conte is finished with us yet. Or in asking as well, is Conte dead in the water? For me, the general feeling is he is dead in the water. Now, I am kind of seeking clarification on a few points in that one, but I think it's dead in the water. You know, you're talking about the most stubborn chairman negotiating with the most stubborn manager. There's not going to be a lot of concessions on either side. And in hindsight, it's easy to say this deal was never going to happen, but it was never going to happen, I think is the best way to put it. So, as Romano has said this morning, Antonio Conte is now destined to remain on standby for a year, calmly deciding his next club. Barring surprises, therefore, Conte will take a sabbatical for the season. That is courtesy of Spurs Express on Twitter, fantastic news aggregator on there if anyone does want to follow them as well. So Antonio Conte is now destined to remain on standby for a year, calmly deciding his next club. Barring surprises, therefore, Conte will take a sabbatical for a season. And Darren Cook joining the channel membership. Darren, thank you very much for joining. We will have some member call-in shows coming up hopefully this week, so do keep an eye out for those. And anyone else, if you do want to become a channel member, hit that join button down below and everything will be explained for you. You can get some nice emojis beside your name like Mark Woodland and Darren Cook have in the chat there. Thank you very much for that, Darren. So it's typical Tottenham. I think that's the tweet Mark Woodland is alluding to there. We wanted Ten Hag, new contract. We want Pochettino, new contract. We want Conte, he doesn't have a club to sign a new contract, so he decides to take a year out. Look, I don't think that's entirely related to the Spurs job. I think he's going to realise that he might need to wait for the right job for him, because his stocks have never been higher as a manager. He is undoubtedly one of the top 5 in the world. You know, he's had 7 seasons in top flight management, and he's won the league in 5 of those. He's not going to go to a club where he's not guaranteed or doesn't have a really good chance of winning the league. And realistically, at Spurs in the next 3, 4, 5 years, we're not going to win a league no matter who's in charge. So I do think there was that kind of element of things for Antonio Conte. And now taking that year out, you know, if he just needs a rest after going from one job to the next straight away, I don't think there's much time between his jobs at Italy, Chelsea, and Inter Milan. So he's going to be taking a year out, which I think does end any hope of a deal for Antonio Conte coming in if we thought there was still one there. Again, Corriere dello Sport and another Italian source talking about Conte maybe still mulling things over. I do think that's done. Shauna, good to see you in the live chat again, coming in with the £5 super chat. Thank you very much for that, Shauna. I do massively appreciate it. Says, who do you think the next manager will be? It's very difficult to predict at the moment, and look, for me it's easy to look at Erik ten Hag. He's top of the betting odds at the moment. I know people are saying with Sky Bet, Pochettino is still top of the odds, but across Sky Bet, Paddy Power, William Hill, Betfair, BetVictor, Betfred and Boyle Sports, across all of them combined, Erik ten Hag is currently the favourite. So I would look at ten Hag. I've also heard that the club are going to properly push for ten Hag in the coming days, and look, it's easy to look at that contract that he has and dismiss him as a manager straight away, but that contract was an extension that was automatically triggered by Ajax. So Ten Hag did not put pen to paper on any deal this summer, which I do think is something we do need to take note of. Now, he made those comments saying he's happy he was working with at Ajax. He straight out said there was a potential for a move away, and we do understand that to be a potential move to Tottenham. Jack, I'm not blinking, don't do this. But he had to say it. It's in a similar vein of, Pochettino will now have to come out and say, well, I never wanted to leave PSG. It's not exactly true. I think there are too many reports saying that he wants to leave, and not enough denying the fact that he wants to leave to say that wasn't true. I think Ten Hag had to say what he had to say, and if I had to guess right now, I would say Erik ten Hag. But again, it's completely impossible to predict where this is going to go from a Spurs point of view, from any point of view. When journalists like Alistair Gold and Fabrizio Romano are so confident that the deal will happen and then it doesn't, it just goes to show exactly where Spurs are in this and the absolute shambles that they are in trying to get this deal done. Brian, good to see you in the live chat. I appreciate it. I'm very good this morning. How are you? Dara says, Spurs as a football club are laughable. Only they can mess up a one-horse race for a world-class manager. And that's it. Antonio Conte has chosen not working over coming to Spurs. And just to reiterate, the Antonio Conte deal is as good as dead in the water. Any reports to the contrary should just be ignored. I hope that's not the case. I hope we can turn this around, but no, I really don't think that'll happen. So the main news of the last half an hour or so is from Fabrizio Romano, again via Spurs Express on Twitter. They're saying, excuse me, they're saying there's great disappointment at Spurs over Conte, but also the belief that an important solution on the manager will soon be reached. Just reiterating again, there was a difference of approximately €3 million between a salary offered by Tottenham and requested by Conte. Now, we also know that Conte wanted more staff members than Daniel Levy was offering him. He wanted 7. The club weren't willing to give him more than 4. However, I do understand there were also kind of worries from the Tottenham point of view. One of them being the financial power that Antonio Conte would require, which would beg the question, why go into negotiations with him in the first place? But also his lack of willingness to work with youth at Spurs. Players like Oliver Skipp and Ryan Sessegnon, he wanted to ship them out straight away. And that's not what Spurs are about. They're players that do have a big future at the club. For me, surprising that he wanted to get rid of Sessegnon, because a lot of people thought he'd be a player that would flourish under Antonio Conte, but there were worries on both sides of the deal, which is why that hasn't happened. And we know Conte was surprised by how quickly the deal fell apart on Friday afternoon. But it looks like Conte will not be the new manager. But there's a belief within Spurs that an important solution on the manager will soon be reached. So this is why I was so concerned about the Jurgen Klinsmann comments last night, and we'll bring those up in a second. Brian says, I'm good, thanks, apart from our beloved Smoke and Mirrors FC entering an 8th week without a manager. This is day 49 without a manager for Spurs, which is, it's absolutely shocking when you think about it. But let's just go back through those comments from Jurgen Klinsmann, which he made on ESPN last night. He says that Daniel Levy contacted him over the vacant managerial role shortly after Jose Mourinho was sacked. It's easy to kind of just brush over that. But the one thing that deeply concerned me is where we're going with this now. And Jurgen Klinsmann said that Levy just was kind of testing the water, trying to figure out what he wanted, and said, look, I have a few things to figure out. Let's see what happens. And further down the line, you never know. And my concern now is, I suppose links into Priyansh's question there, do you think we'll appoint a manager before the Euros? I think Daniel Levy could now be absolutely feeling the pressure, and I'd hope to God he's been feeling the pressure all along, but feeling the pressure of the time constraints with Spurs needing to get a new manager in. And Klinsmann, like I said last night, could just be a safety net for Spurs. He could be that one that if we can't get Conte, if we can't get Poch, if we can't get Ten Hag, we'll then go back to the Jurgen Klinsmann appointment, and as our safety net, a plan B, he's just there. If we need a manager by the end of this, we'll just go with you. That could be now where Spurs are going on this one. And with Romano saying there's a belief that a deal will, or an agreement or a manager will soon be appointed. is that doesn't say to me that there's a manager that Spurs are going to work hard to get, or there's a manager that we want, that we're really going to try and work to get in. And I said it last night, the Klinsmann appointment, if it happens, absolutely is not one that involves Daniel Levy, Steve Hitchen, Fabio Paratici, whoever it is, sitting down around a table, going through what they want and deciding straight out the ideal candidate or the exact manager that we want is Jurgen Klinsmann. If that happens, that is not the way that deal was reached. That is simply, well, we didn't get the managers we'd initially identified. We then tried to get Conte. We didn't get him either. Let's just go with Klinsmann. Let's just get a manager for the sake of having a manager. And that is my biggest fear with the way this is going. And I do genuinely think that is the way this is going at the moment. It's going to be a manager that we're settling for rather than a manager that we want, or a manager that will be a good appointment for the club. Let's go through a few comments here. LDM1 says, Jurgen is a legend, don't fancy him though. TJ Orr says, Klinsmann is a shocking coach. Tony says, the fan base is so negative right now. It's unbelievable. Tony, it's hard not to be negative with what's going on at the club now, with no manager, and finally getting a director of football in. But of course, we don't have a manager for him to work with. And I'm looking at Aston Villa and their signing of Emi Buendia and their interest in James Ward-Prowse, and I'm looking at that and I'm realising they're spending the Jack Grealish money before they've ever gotten it in. If this was Spurs, you're talking potentially Harry Kane leaving this summer. There's not a chance we would preemptively spend that money. We would wait until Harry Kane was gone and then bring it right down to deadline day and bring in 2 or 3 second choice players. Our recruitment and our business sense in terms of getting players in is not as good as Aston Villa's. And that's absolutely terrifying. And another kind of bracket that we could fit a potential Kane departure into is Liverpool and their sale of Philip Coutinho. That could have been the end of them for quite a while. He was such an important player to them. They brought in Alisson and Van Dijk with that money and completely transformed them into an English and a European superpower. So why can't Spurs be like that? Why can't Spurs match Aston Villa's ambition? We couldn't match the ambition of a man we were trying to employ. We didn't want Antonio Conte because he wanted to win trophies, and we weren't too sure that was the best thing for us. It's really difficult not to be negative, Tony. Little big man Ryan, thank you very much for the super chat. Says, Matty to Spurs legend, keep up the top work, man. Thanks for that, Ryan. I appreciate it. And look, if Daniel Levy came knocking, I mean, I might have to bring that banner with me, but if he came knocking, I don't think I'd say no to it. But thanks for tuning in as always, Ryan. I appreciate it. Dara says, Jurgen or Sarri will be confirmed by the end of the week, in my opinion. I read Sarri has not yet signed for Lazio, as he feels a Spurs job might come up, and Maurizio Sarri is a name that has continued to crop up throughout the search for a manager. It's not one that's exactly been a realistic appointment. It's kind of been one that's just kind of simmering away in the background, and we've continued to hear that it could be a manager that hasn't yet been linked. You know, Alistair Gold said it quite a bit, and Romano said we can't rule out any surprises. Sarri hasn't yet gotten a new job. He was heavily linked with Lazio after they let Simone Inzaghi go to Inter Milan after they let Antonio Conte go. Sarri not yet put pen to paper on that deal. Could he be the next Spurs man? I don't know. I personally wouldn't want it, but I'd take him over Jurgen Klinsmann. I'd take him over Potter over Scott Parker. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. I think it is interesting that Sarri hasn't yet taken a job. So take a quick look at the betting odds for Maurizio Sarri. With Sky Bet, he is coming in at 14-1, 16-1 with William Hill, or 16-1 with Paddy Power, 25-1 with William Hill, 16-1 with Betfair, and 16-1 as well with Boyle Sports. And speaking of the betting odds, William Hill and Boyle Sports had suspended markets on Tottenham's new manager, but they reopened this morning, both of them with Ten Hag coming in at shortened odds of 9-4 at William Hill and 3-1 with Boyle Sports. So odds shortening by the day on Ten Hag being the next man. And again, I do understand that Tottenham will push for Ten Hag in the coming days or coming weeks as they do try and find a solution to this absolute mess that they have found themselves in. And it is worth noting as well that the last 3 times William Hill suspended their markets on the Tottenham manager, there was big news very shortly after that. So the first time they suspended betting, all of a sudden Pochettino could be an option. Then they suspended again, Pochettino's off but Conte's on, and then just before the Conte deal fell through as well, they had closed their market. So I am expecting potentially a bit of an update today just based on that William Hill thing, and it could very easily be a coincidence with all that timing, but given that they are the official betting partner of the club, I will keep a close eye on that one. Mark coming in with the super chat for the €2. Mark, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It says, thoughts on the Bonucci, Kulusevski and Dybala PTSD. Well, look, reports in the last couple of days suggesting that Fabio Paratici could move for for two Juventus players. One is 34-year-old centre-back Leonardo Bonucci, and the other is Dejan Kulusevski. I'm not quite sure how old he is, but I do think he is quite young. He's 21 years of age. Kulusevski, a Swedish midfielder or winger for Juventus. He was a bit of a revelation in the Serie A. Was it last season with Parma, and Juventus picked him up. I think loaned him back to Parma last year, and he's back playing with them now. A bit of a revelation for them. Hasn't done too well with Juventus. Their whole team has struggled this year, just about getting into the Champions League, given given Napoli's draw with Hellas Verona on the last day of the season. But if Paratici is bringing in players from a club he's worked at and players he's worked with, well, I'd be some bit hopeful that he knows more about them than our scouting network might. And if he knows about them and still wants to bring them with him, they will potentially be good signings. Now, the Bonucci deal, if it does go through, it's not exactly one that I think Spurs should be targeting in terms of the kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? The type of player we're looking for in terms of age and all that stuff. I think he's too old for Spurs. But again, if Paratici wants him, I would have to trust him that he knows what he's doing. Dybala, whenever I hear Paulo Dybala's name in the same sentence as Tottenham, I just think of what could have been. And again, I've said it quite a bit in the last couple of days. Daniel Levy is his own worst enemy. He is his own worst enemy. He promises us Conte and Poch. We end up with Ten Hag. All of a sudden, we're more disappointed than we would have been if Ten Hag was appointed 3 weeks ago. Lo Celso was a fantastic deal, but it doesn't seem as great when you could have had Dybala or Bruno Fernandes or Philip Coutinho. And that's where Levy is his own worst enemy. Brad Matthews with a £5 super chat. Brad, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. Says Monday mornings couldn't get any worse. Levy's tough negotiating reputation has finally caught up with him, and now it's mistake after mistake, and that's what it is. He's tried to go into negotiations this time with people who are just as stubborn as him, but also people who are in better positions of power. And I kind of spoke a bit about how the Paratici deal kind of came about with Pochettino and all that. And there was a comment on one of my videos that I saw just before I went live, and it made a very good point that we went for Fabio Paratici while he was still contracted by Juventus to make a move for Mauricio Pochettino, who's still under contract at PSG. Levy isn't making any friends throughout this entire debacle. He really isn't, and it just could be making things worse and worse for Spurs in the coming years. But Brad, thank you for the super chat. Kev with the £2 as well. Thank you very much, Kev. I appreciate it. Says, if Kane leaves, I'd like Jesus and Sterling in return. And that, I think, is the most realistic way for Kane to join Manchester City. They don't spend exorbitant amounts of money on one player. I think their record is about £65 million for Ruben Diaz. So they're not going to go out and spend 150 million on a player. I think if they do make a move for Kane, there will be some sort of player swap deal that they are looking for. Before we continue, I still want to remind everyone that we are on the road to 10,000 subscribers before the new season starts. We've had insane support in the channel in the last week or so, so please, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. It would be massively appreciated. Get your name pop up on screen, like Michael Trafford did when he subscribed 13 hours ago. But yeah, it would be greatly appreciated. And like I said, on the road to 10k before the season starts, we're about 1.8 thousand subscribers off. So any support there would be appreciated. And Priyansh was asking a while ago, do I think the deal will be done before the Euros? If you had said to me when Jose Mourinho was sacked, or when Alistair Gold was telling us we'd have an appointment before the end of the season, or even last week when everything was kind of starting to heat up, if you had told me that we would not have a manager before the Euros, I would have absolutely freaked out. And I'm trying my very best not to freak out right now, because the very fact that Spurs can go into the transfer window without a manager in place, without a manager to tell us what players he wants or what players he needs, is an absolute farce. It is an absolute shambles. And I believe the transfer window is opening on the 16th of June. No, it's earlier than that. The transfer window is opening on Wednesday. The transfer window is opening in 2 days' time, and Spurs, with their squad in a state that it hasn't been in for over a decade, do not have a manager to buy players to fix it. It's absolutely crazy from Daniel Levy. You can say he's a great businessman all you want. I disagree with that. But you cannot, to any extent, say Daniel Levy is a capable or competent footballing man. And he'll bring in Fabio Paratici, and he can come in and say, Paratici will be leading transfers. He'll be working with the manager. He'll have the final say on who that manager is going to be. But Daniel Levy does not have the ability to give power like that to somebody else. And for me, it's as simple as that. Levy is never going to stop trying to control these things financially and in footballing terms as well. And it is a massive, massive fear that I have, and that we should all have. Thomas, thank you so much for subscribing. I appreciate it. And Look, where do we go from here? Are we going to have an appointment before the Euros? Well, we have 4 days to get that done. Turkey kick off against Italy at 8 p.m. British summertime this Friday. Can we get a deal done by there? Look, again, to go back to what Romano said, Harry, thank you very much for subscribing. Romano said, we still are confident that we can reach an important solution soon as we try and get our manager. I see a lot of people mentioning Christophe Galtier. And like I said, brought to the channel about 6 weeks ago, I heard that Spurs exclusively had been in talks with Christophe Galtier. Now that's proven that it may have been true. If you do want a lot of info on Galtier, the video is back there with the Euro expert looking at Galtier, his style of play and all that stuff. So please do go back and check that out if you are interested in Galtier potentially being the next Spurs manager. Now the odds on that at the moment aren't great. You can get 20 to 1, or aren't exactly realistic, 20 to 1 with Sky Bet, as wide as 33 to 1 with William Hill, but reaching short odds of 11 to 1 with Paddy Power and Betfair. AJ Mandeville says, Matt, what do you think Kane is thinking? I think Kane is thinking the exact same as what every other Spurs player is thinking, and the exact same as what every player who could be joining Spurs is thinking. Why do I want to be at this club? We, again, have just had a manager pull out of negotiations with us because, or reportedly pull out of negotiations with us because the club can't match his ambition. Daniel Levy clearly doesn't know what he's doing and clearly doesn't care enough to get this deal done if 49 days after sacking Jose Mourinho, and I just want to reiterate, we sacked Jose Mourinho 6 days before a cup final against a manager who only Jose had beaten in a cup final before. Levy doesn't know what he's doing. Kazafi, thank you for subscribing there. So what's the point? What's the point in joining Spurs? What's the point in wanting to stay at Spurs? It's not a desirable place to be for a manager or for a player. For fans, it's not exactly desirable either. I've spoken last night on Bob's Per TV about how the protests at the stadium weren't great. I think that's because fans are more disillusioned than they are angry. And I know Brian Daigle, if you're still in the live chat, will feel very, very strongly about this. I genuinely think fans are so disillusioned that they couldn't be bothered getting angry and they couldn't be bothered going down and making their voices heard, because it doesn't feel like there's going to be change. As much as we could possibly say, as much as we could possibly do, it doesn't feel like we're going to be listened to, and it doesn't feel like any change will happen. So what's the point? And I've said so long, since maybe February, March, that the only thing worse than being angry at your club is simply not caring. And that's where I feel the majority of the Spurs fan base is right now. And that for me is more concerning than anything else right now. And look, it'll be hard for players not to be the same way. And if you're talking about players and their mentality at the club, Alistair Gold has said there's a lot of frustration within Spurs, within the staff and the players, at the way Steve Hitchen has been treated in all this. Steve Hitchen, who a lot of the time can be used as a scapegoat, and I suppose I have been guilty of that as well. But Steve Hitchen was outlined a task to make a list of managers, Shubankar, thank you for subscribing, to create a list of managers that fit this certain demographic that Daniel Levy was looking for. Age doesn't quite matter, but he's a young, or an exciting manager, plays free-flowing attacking football, energetic, fast-paced, all this good stuff that we want to hear, that we want Tottenham to play. Steve Hitchen was told, make us a short list of managers that fit this demographic, and we will go out and get one of them. And he made a short list. He had Erik Ten Hag and Mauricio Pochettino. He had Graham Potter. Was Roberto Martinez, another name on it, that we heard. This is the short list he made. Levy went for Pochettino, and then all of a sudden, Antonio Conte is available, and he goes and he tries to get him, completely disregarding all of the work that Steve Hitchen had put into making that shortlist. And then all of a sudden, in the background, he's been working on bringing Fabio Paratici in to replace Steve Hitchen. And Steve Hitchen is a very popular man within the club. And Alistair Gold now saying that there's frustration and resentment within the club at the way Steve Hitchen has been treated. It's just getting even worse. Adam, thank you for subscribing. And what I've seen a lot of people compare it to in the last couple of days is Martin Yole finding out Juan de Ramos was going to replace him because of pictures in the press of him meeting with Daniel Levy. It's exactly the way it feels. Rob, thank you for subscribing. It's an absolute shambles. When you have Alistair Gold sitting down at 1 a.m. on a Saturday night when he's supposed to be on holidays, making a video and calling it utter mess and just speaking about the utter mess that this club is. And again, he used the words on Friday, barring a disaster, Conte would be the next manager. And he said, well, we did get the disaster. That disaster was Tottenham Hotspur. When someone like Alistair Gold is speaking like that, you really have to take note. T-Rex, thank you for subscribing as well. We're a shambles. We're a mess. We're a joke. Nobody is going to want to be here. Absolutely nobody. So the thought of Kane wanting to stay, maybe turning his mind around, if there was a chance of that being switched around by Antonio Conte or Mauricio Pochettino coming in, that's dead. That is gone. Harry Kane wants to leave Spurs. And I 100% understand where he's coming from. Not one bit of resentment or not one bit of begrudgment if he does want to leave, if he does leave. Look, the talk that Heung-min Son's contract will be formalised this summer, I think is a very good tier. Eamon says, Matt, your channel is the best by far. Big up, man. I appreciate that, Eamon. Thank you so much. And as Priyansh says, Ali Gold was speechless. He was speechless. He did not know what to say. Again, that is a perfect summary of what's happening at Spurs. 2 days till the transfer window opens, and we're still nitpicking and penny pinching in negotiations with one of the best managers in the world, and we let that deal fall through. And again, I do understand there were worries on the Spurs side of things with regards to finances and youth as well. So you can understand why maybe it wasn't the ideal option for Spurs. But what other option comes close to that? What option is better? What option isn't an absolute disappointment after potentially bringing in Antonio Conte? It's concerning, and it's getting more concerning by the day. It's getting more concerning by the hour. And I've been keeping a very, very close eye on Twitter over the last couple of days, trying to keep up to date with every bit of news on this front, and trying to bring the best to you as well. In these videos and live streams, and it's just getting more difficult with every day that goes on. You start to lose interest in it, and like a few people have said here, I just want it to be over. Nippon, thank you for subscribing. Carl says, Matt, you get more subscribers than I have hot dinners. You keep up the great work. Kane wants to go. I might leave with him. I appreciate that, Carl. Thank you very much. Vishal, thank you for subscribing as well. Tom says, Matt, I care about Tottenham and have done for the best part of 56 years. It's Daniel Levy and Erik who are breaking my heart. The man is clueless when it comes to football and is destroying our club. Yeah, I agree with you on that one, Tom. Tony says, this board have ruined our club. I would not be afraid to say we'll be playing championship the following season if they don't buck their ideas up. Paul says, Matt, did you hear the interview with the Italian journalist on ESPN? It says the Conte deal not dead and could be negotiating ploy. I did hear that. I can't quite remember the name of that journalist, but I do know Corriere dello Sport had a very similar story out. I think was it early yesterday morning. Now look, through the beginning of these negotiations, when we're hearing Conte wants more money, Conte this, Conte that, I kind of felt, and a lot of people felt, that to some degree the Italian media was acting as a mouthpiece for Antonio Conte. Richard, thank you for subscribing. Santo, thank you for the super chat. The 40 rupees says Spurs ain't making my life any easier. Well, that's definitely for sure. Santo, thank you for the super chat. And Jerome as well with the $5 says we might end up with Klinsmann. Any thoughts on that? Thank you, Jerome, for the super chat as well. We'll get to that in 2 seconds. But just to finish the comment there on Conte, we felt the Italian media was to some extent a mouthpiece for Conte. That could be the case now, but when Fabrizio Romano was coming out and saying he's taking a year out, dead in the water, not happening, Spurs continue to try and convince him on Friday, and he didn't turn it around. Carl there says Gabriel Marcotti, I think, is the one on ESPN. I do think there's a potential that this is all just a negotiating ploy, but I don't think it is. I think the two people involved in these negotiations are just too stubborn for any negotiating ploy like this to work. I do think that Conte deal is dead in the water. And Jerome Cloridor asking about Jurgen Klinsmann there as well. Again, thank you for the super chat, Jerome. I don't want it. I've seen a lot of people talking about comments from the Bayern players and German players when he left the job as their manager. I haven't seen those comments, but people are saying it's not a good sign of Klinsmann. And we talk, Dylan, thank you for subscribing. We talk about wanting a manager with this sort of this demographic, this style of play, these values, these philosophies and all that. I could not for the life of me tell you one thing about Jurgen Klinsmann's managerial style. I simply couldn't. And again, people there saying he ruined Hertha Berlin. I couldn't tell you what style of football he plays. I couldn't tell you what type of player he wants to recruit. Does he like young players? Does he like experienced players? What does he want? I couldn't tell you that. And look, I know me knowing that isn't important. It's what Spurs want and what they know. But it's not a good sign if the fans, immediately when an appointment is made, if the fans aren't on side, you're in big trouble. Massive trouble. Especially where we are now. And I do feel there is that element of people who will be happy about it because he was a club legend. He was a brilliant player for us. Again, I never had the pleasure of watching him play for Spurs, but I've seen highlights. I know exactly what he was like. Lucy Karzak, thank you for subscribing. But that's not enough. Him being a club legend is not enough for him to be Spurs manager. And it's as simple as that. If that seems harsh, I do apologise. Maybe there is more to it than that, but I don't want Klinsmann. I wouldn't take that. For me, the best option right now is Erik ten Hag. And again, I have heard that Spurs will be pushing for Ten Hag in the coming days, and with his actually odds have just shortened on Sky Bet. He's now 2-1 with Sky Bet to be the next Spurs manager, moving ahead of Pochettino, who's drifted to 3-1. So with Sky Bet in the last couple of seconds, Erik Ten Hag has become the favourite to be the new Spurs manager in at 2-1. Similar odds with William Hill at 9-4, 3-1 at Boyle Sports, and 12-5 with Paddy Power. Rosemary says, Matt, you have a great podcast. I appreciate that, Rosemary. Thank you very much. Darren Cook says, Klinsmann, great player and legend, but no as a manager. That's exactly my feeling on this one as well, Darren. Matt's saying Spurs messed up badly. We absolutely did. We absolutely didn't. Isn't showing any encouraging signs of turning around. But again, the news of the hour is coming from Fabrizio Romano that Tottenham still believe they can come to a decision on their manager soon, despite recent setbacks. Whether that manager will be one that we want or who that manager will be remains the biggest question that needs to be answered. Thank you everyone who has subscribed. If you do want to hear the answers on that Spurs manager, if you do want to know every bit of news first, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. We'll be keeping you up to date on every development over the next week, and if it does rumble on all throughout the summer. But hopefully we will have a manager appointed, and then the Tottenham Hotspur Transfer Talk series will be back in full flow. Again, hear every bit of news first here at Matt Hayes Tottenham Blog. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. On the road to 10k before the season starts. Hopefully we get there on 8.2k right now. Crazy support over the last couple of weeks, and I really do hope that continues. Make sure to hit a like on the stream. If you have enjoyed it. We are currently on 118 with 500 people watching. Let's see if we can get that to 150 likes. But look, it's going to be a busy week. Hopefully it's definitely going to be an upsetting summer if this isn't sorted out. Loves music in with the super chat with the £5. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. So I think we'll end up with Klinsmann for a year, then go back in for Poch. Klinsmann was an incredible player, by the way. And there is a feeling that we're just waiting for Poch's contract at PSG to run down. You know, Conte seemed like a 2-year sort of job. Then Poch's contract is up. Maybe we could go back in there. I really hope you're wrong with ending up with Klinsmann, but you very well could be right. But again, thank you for that super chat. Cody with a good point says, every day that goes by, the next manager falls further behind, being set up to fail more each day. And that, I think, is a beautiful bombshell to end this stream on. Cody, thank you for for ruining our day more than we even needed it. But it's absolutely true. It is bang on the money. The manager's been set up to fail. He's a lot of catching up to do already, and it gets more and more with every day that passes. But look, thank you to everyone who's tuned in. 2,500 people over the last half an hour. Really do appreciate it. 500 people still left in here. Hit that like button. We're on 142. Let's get that to 150. Let's get to 10k subscribers. And as always, thanks for watching.